So, hello, we're going to make beer. The reason I want to do this is because we've got a hop plant in our back garden. Now, we live in Kent. This is one of the principal, or was one of the principal hop growing areas in Europe. They grew enormous amounts of hops here. People would come from London to pick hops and so on. So there's a lot of heritage hops around here, and there's a place near us called the Hop Farm that sells hop plants. We stuck one in our garden. It's produced a prodigious amount of flowers, so I want to do something with them. So I've got a bunch of hops and a whole bunch of green hops. These aren't as green as the others. And we're going to make some beer out of them. I want to make a Christmas porter because I love porters. So I'm going to give it a go. I've only got two types of malt. One, the base malt for the majority of the sugars, and a chocolate malt for the kind of caramel flavours and colour. I'm going to shove in some chocolate and vanilla as well. Let's get started. Now the first stage in brewing is called the mash stage. This is where you take the cracked grains, steep them in water, heat the water up to certain temperatures where the enzymes that are within the grains can convert the starch into sugars that are fermentable. Because we need to obviously convert these sugars into alcohol. It has to be in a fermentable form that the yeast can act on. So let's do that now. For the mash stage, we need something to steep the grains in to extract the sugars. And we need to keep it hot so that the enzymes can break down the complex sugars into things like maltose that can be fermentable. Now, you'll see sometimes that people use kind of insulated containers, and they'll put in water at, say, 60 degrees C, and then they'll just leave it there and it will stay at that temperature for an hour, and that will kind of be it. There are 4 main enzymes that can be activated, which are beta-glucanase. This is going from lowest to highest temperature, and that will break down glucans. Then you've got protease, which will break down proteins, then beta-amylase, which breaks down starch, and alpha-amylase, which breaks down starch as well. And they obviously break down different compounds. So you'll see in certain brewing methods that they'll be pausing at each of these stages in order to break down different amounts of sugar, leaving different compounds in there to get the kind of flavour profile that they want at the end of it. So we're going to kind of do that. So I'm going to put in initially 10 litres of water, heat that up to the beta-glucanase temperature, like 40-45, and then I'm going to pause there for 7 minutes, go to the protease temperature, pause there for 7 minutes, go to the beta-amylase temperature, pause there for 20 minutes, and then pause for 30 minutes there, and then 20 minutes at alpha-amylase, and then the last 10 anyway. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to add the grains at different points. Now in order to I want to be able to measure how much liquid is left in, because I need to add liquid back in for the boil stage, depending on how much comes off during this mashing stage. And at the end of the boil, we need to add more water back in and so on. So I'm just going to pour 5 litres in here and then mark off what 5 litres is. This is a cylinder, so then I can just measure it and mark off increments of 5. That's marked off. The water's now at 45 degrees Celsius. The beta-glucanase is active between 40 and 45 degrees Celsius approximately. So I'm going to put this in now. That will lower the temperature slightly because obviously this is lower temperature, but I can heat it up again. But I think this is the time to put it in. So that is 45, just above. Oh, it smells amazing. It really does. Right, it's nicely mixed in. Just want to stir it a bit to make sure there's no clumps. But you see the spoon's got holes in, so that'll help. We are now at 40. So that's actually perfect because this is when the beta-glucanase starts being active. So what I'm going to do is just, I'm just going to start heating it again. Because by the time it'll then go through that phase, it'll probably take around 7.5 minutes, which is what I want to hold it at. just realised I did something really stupid. I wanted to do the boil in the bag method so I could then sparge the mash in the bag, since I've only got one pot. I forgot to put it in the bag. So I'm going to have to do some kind of crazy double transfer and hope that this doesn't mess things up too much. I don't think it will. But now obviously we're pouring several litres of water into that seems alright. Seems fine. Back in there. Just want to get the rest out. Ah! Ah! Oh no, the classic. Okay, we lost a couple of grains there, but you know, nothing major. Gotta get it back on there as soon as possible. All done! Saved! So now they're in the bag and everything's fine. It's getting up to the next temperature. So the protease phase is between 50 and 55 degrees. And we're kind of we're getting up to 50 now. I'm going to take it up to about 52 and then keep it around 52 for another 7.5 minutes. We're at about 65 now. Beta amylase is active between about 62 degrees Celsius and 67 degrees, so I'm going to keep it there for half an hour. That wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it would be. I took it to about 67 degrees and I just left it, stirred it every now and again, and it gradually decreased in temperature to about 62 over a period of half an hour. So it's perfect actually, that's the range of the beta amylase. Now for the alpha amylase, that's 71 to 72 or 70 to 72 depending on what you look at. So I'm going to heat it back up to that. We're now at 70, so I'm going to keep it at 70, this alpha amylase stage, for the last 15 minutes. At T minus 7 minutes, or 7.5 minutes, I'm going to put the chocolate malt in. Now I meant to buy some crystal malt as well, because I wanted to obviously create complex flavours in this porter, but I forgot, which is really annoying. But I found in my cupboard barley malt extract, which just says an extract of barley and malted barley. So I'm just going to add that in, just to add complexity. This makes it more difficult to replicate. Next time I would use the crystal malts, but essentially I just want some different malts in there and slightly different flavours. Now some people don't like the idea of heating up the vessel to keep the temperature, because they would argue, oh, at the interface you might denature the enzymes, but I think that's quite unlikely, and we'll see whether or not this ferments afterwards, but I'm pretty sure it's going to ferment and it's going to work. We're at T minus 5 minutes, so I'm going to add in the chocolate malt. So this is the mash after all of that. And what we're going to do now is called the sparge. Now the purpose of the sparge is to rinse out the remaining sugars, or as many of the sugars as we can, from the grain. Now because I've got the bag, I can extract the grain and let the wort, which is the liquid, drain out. Then we're going to pour over water, which is called the sparge liquid, which is supposed to be about 85 degrees C. I've just boiled a kettle and left it for a bit, so it's near enough 85 degrees C. Now, so let's do it. So obviously be careful, pour it very gently. I'm trying to move it all over different parts of it. So this sparging also has the effect of killing, well, of denaturing the enzymes so that the sugar conversion stops. But we're going to boil it straight away anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So at this point I'm going to add in this barley malt extract. It's not boiling yet, but I'm just going to mix this stuff in. And obviously when we get to the boil we're going to add the hops in. The wort is now reaching boiling temperature, so it's the start of the boil, so we're going to add in the hops. Now I've got these hops from my garden, which are the Progress hops. These are a cross between the Whitbread Golding variety and an American wild hop, a male wild hop. I'm going to add about half of them in. That'll be about 150 grams. These are wet hops, so they're new directly off the plant. So you need, some people say you need between 5 and 8 times as much. I'm going to add the other half towards the end. Obviously I'm going to have to filter this stuff out. And I mean, some of it will sink to the bottom. I'm going to mash it up. But clearly I'm going to have to filter the beer before I start fermenting it. This will hopefully then contribute to the bitter flavours in the beer and help preserve it. I may as well add in some of the other stuff now. I've got a Oaxacan chocolate here ground up. So this was just raw cacao ground up. That's going to go in there. I'm going to add in some coffee as well at some point. I'm going to add that a bit later on. This is now going to have to boil for about an hour and a half, and I'm going to add in some more hops in the last sort of 5 minutes. So I'm going to add some coffee now. This is just brewed espresso for flavour. Don't know what that's going to do to it. It's a bit like George's Marvellous Medicine, the Roald Dahl book. What I'm also going to add is some vanilla essence, because I want it to be a vanilla coffee style. I probably do. Don't want to go insane. Don't want to get told off for using all of the vanilla essence either. There we go. Let's give that a mix and then leave it to boil for the next, what, about an hour and 20 minutes now. This bad boy is almost ready. I'm going to add in a few more hops now, but I'm not going to add all of them because it's already pretty bitter. I'm just going to add a few in, just to add a bit of extra fresh bitterness. And I'm going to let those just cook for about 5 minutes. Then we're done. I've measured this and it's only about 8 litres, and I'll probably want about 12 litres. I've got about 3 litres of cold water I'm going to put in to cool this, so I need to put in 1 litre or 2 litres of extra water, so I'm going to put some boiling water in now from the kettle. I'm just going to quickly get rid of these hops, so I don't have to, I will put it through a filter, but this will be easier. The boil is now done, and now this has to be cooled as quickly as possible before putting it in the fermentation vessel. Apparently if you just let it to cool down slowly, bad flavours develop, apparently, but I've never tried that, so I don't know. But everyone says you've got to cool it as quickly as possible, so that's what we'll do. Now lots of people use a wort chiller, so something like a copper coil, and they just run water through it, circulate cold water through it, and immerse that in the wort to cool it down quickly. I don't have one of those, so what I've done is I copied someone's idea I saw on YouTube, and I've just boiled a load of water and then I've frozen it, and I'm just going to put that in. So the boiled water is going to be sterile, I'm going to put it in there, that should cool it down. It's about 80 degrees now. I'm hoping I'm going to put it straight in the fermentation vessel, in the hope that will make it easier to cool down without the aluminium kind of acting as a big heat sink. Ooh, there we go. Looking good. Well, we're down to 68 degrees, so that took it down 10 degrees just pouring it out of there. We've only got 7 litres, which isn't ideal. I wanted About 12. So this is very cold water. It's just sort of forming ice. The water is at minus 3.7 actually, so that's very good. If it was ice, I'd have to wait for the whole block to dissolve, but because it's just very cold water, it hasn't really formed the ice yet. Should make it a bit quicker. So that one's a bit more of a block. So I want to get it down to the temperature at which to pitch the yeast in, which is about 20 degrees. We're down at 48. So that's not bad, we've still got 25 degrees to go, but the ice method works pretty well. If I had a bit more ice, that would work really well. I think I'm just going to have to leave it to cool for the rest of it and hope that it cools pretty quickly. That took way too long to cool down, but it's 26 degrees now. I can't wait till the morning. I'm going to pitch half of it now, and then I'm going to pitch it, and hopefully that will take. If it doesn't, I'll pitch the rest in the morning when it will definitely be cool enough. I'm going to bottle these bad boys up. It's still fermenting but incredibly slowly. So I could just leave it to clear a bit, but what I'm going to do is try and bottle condition some of it. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do. But Nico's just bought me a book on craft beer brewing, so I think that's the next step, is to actually, read a bit more about what's supposed to be done. I've got one of these kegs, which is quite cool. It comes pre-sterilised, and then you put the bung in it, and yeah, it's basically a 5 litre mini keg. Helps if you open the valve before. It's a disaster. What the f? Right, this is going to need some help. Oh no. So as I say, the proof is in the pudding. So I'm here with my father-in-law Barry, and we're going to give it a go. Good.
Not bad at all. No.
Yeah, it's. I think it's right.
Yeah.
It's definitely. It's quite sweet.
Yeah.
Not as smoky and dark as I'd want it.
Well, you definitely got the smoky flavour there, no?
Oh yeah, it's there in the background.
It's not overpowering. It's very
So
pleasant.
Good
Very
first
drinkable.
try. Yeah, definitely drinkable. Yeah. Bottoms up. Bottoms up, is that how you say it? Yeah. Thanks for watching.